the lightnings, rider on the storm, wearer of a crown of swords, spinner out of fate. Who thinks he turns the wheel of time may learn the truth too late.
Do you still remember who you are? Do you remember your blood?
An eternity in bloom, a flicker in flower, a flicker, an eternity in you.
As Sweet are the dreams of yesteryear, of times you never saw. Sweet are the dreams of villainy, to suit your present trial. Sweet are the dreams that take you back, and bid you what if could have been, and if only it wasn't in the never was, that never comes. Bittersweet the bursting of the dream, to know those before did not do as you see with hindsight they should. Bittersweet to know that those hereafter will think the same when their dreams have soured. Bittersweet to think that those before thought the same of theirs, in the never was that never comes. Bitter sour to face ahead, to break this burden, rotten dead. Bitter vow that you would never see the fruit of this work, but sweeter yet than any else, a future destined with blood everlasting in hell. The dream is them. They are the dream that is yet to begin.
flowers. And how much do I like flowers? So much. Flowers fashion like buttercups.
master of the lightnings, rider on the storm, wearer of a crown of swords, spinner out of fate. Who thinks he turns the wheel of time may learn the truth too late.
Do you still remember who you are? Do you remember your blood?
Evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to, what we've decided to call ClownWorld Overload. That's the name we've decided to stick with this. We were trying to think of one on the previous shows, but trying to explain what we're trying to put across here, because this is where me, Phil Simpson, and Racial Consciousness try and break down the absolute insanity that is going on, and anti-white insanity. Let's make that clear. It's not just... Although there is other insanity going on as well, such is the nature of the world we live in at the moment. So we're going to try to break down some of the bigger stories and try and understand what they mean. As always, that's our MO, our mission objective here, to try and really show people the seriousness of what's going on, because some of these stories are funny. Some of these stories we could laugh at, but what makes them so dangerous is that they have real life implications for our folk, and it's getting worse by the day. Like me and RC were just talking before the show, just trying to line up some of the stories that we wanted to talk about. And we probably won't even get to all the ones we've lined up, and all the ones we've lined up are not all the stories. So we apologise if we miss some, but there's just so much going on. And isn't that right, RC? It's a bit crazy out there.
Well, it was kind of the whole point of doing this show was that the number of stories that are coming out is reaching critical mass. We can't possibly keep up with the insanity. And for the last 2 weeks, we've actually been trying to come up with a name for the show. And it was just today that I was sitting down this morning. I was sitting down. I was getting ready to put my notes together for what I want to talk about for tonight's show. And I messaged Phil and I was like, man, like this shit is information overload. Like this is impossible to try to pick out, well, what's the best stories to talk about? What stories can we use to illustrate, what's coming? Because that's the whole point of this, is not just to be a news story or a news stream. We want to show you very clearly that all of this is leading somewhere, and that all of you guys listening, you have to be prepared for where this is leading. But the whole point is there's so much to choose from with everything going on. And that's why I was like, yeah, this is information overload. And that's what we just decided to call it. Since the, this is the ClownWorld, just said, call it ClownWorld Overload. It's the only appropriate title.
Yeah, and I agreed. I thought it was a brilliant title because we were struggling with one. But tonight we're going to have kind of a running theme. We are going to try and organise the stories in a way that we can kind of get a theme to give to show what's going on. And tonight we're going to try and show just how bad the media is at covering this, well, being anti-white. I mean, completely, deliberately, and deliberately, fully intentional. Hiding stories that are against us and hiding stories that are for us and promoting stories that are against us. And as people know, with YouTube censorship, etc., when you don't, but by what you hide, you become a propaganda machine. So when mainstream media is burying stories that are pro us and hyping stories that are encouraging, let's be real, encouraging violence against us and excusing violence against us, which we're going to show tonight, they become a propaganda machine. And when the mainstream media is doing this, it shows the dire situation that we're in. I mean, when we finished last week's show, again, a big story came out pretty much the next day. And I'll just see if I can set that up for you guys here so you can see what I'm talking about. This is about the lady that got shot in Indianapolis. Her name is Jessica Whitaker, and she got shot after... Well, the media buried this story at first. They completely buried it. It was... I forgot what news agency started to cover this first, and I apologise for that because they did some good work on it, and that forced the mainstream media to mention it. But obviously, as we see with that, a lot of them will say alleged, right? They say that it was alleged that there was some kind of argument where this lady said all lives matter. I think it was first reported she said white lives matter, but she actually said all lives matter. And then she was later shot, essentially ambushed, actually, if you read through the story, and shot dead. The media buried this story. And recently she had her GoFundMe taken down as well. Her family's GoFundMe was taken down, which was for their legal defense. Oh no, that was sorry. That was another one. Yeah, I've got confused there. I've got myself mixed up. Although I don't know if they have a GoFundMe actually. I believe they did, but I doubt that will last very long. But yes, if you got anything to say on this story before we jump to that other one, I got a bit ahead of myself there. I apologise for that, guys. I'll see.
Were you waiting on me?
Yeah, the Indianapolis. I just wondered if you had any insight or anything to say on this at all before we move on. Because I know you've got lots to say on some of the stuff coming up, but I just wanted to cover this because this got a lot of traction pretty much the day after our last stream.
Well, it's at this point it's par for the course, and you can see what they're doing with these headlines. So a group of blacks shot a white woman in the head. That's the crux of it. Now, what they do with that is they try to say, well, there was something going on, and potentially she deserved it. Potentially she had it coming. I mean, that's why this just says it happened over an argument, right?
Yeah.
Which then leaves it open to hell. Well, maybe she was responsible for it, which is a crock, because all she said that triggered this, her and her family, they were on the way home from a 4th of July celebration. So they went and saw fireworks somewhere. They passed through the wrong neighborhood or just passed by the wrong group of people. There was some Black Lives Matter event taking place, and she just happened to say white lives matter. Or not white lives matter, I apologize. She said all lives matter. And so that's all it took for violence to be inflicted against her, which it turned into an argument at first between her and the BLM crowd. The initial reports say that they managed to resolve that, and as she was walking away, at least one black male shot her in the back of the head, all over saying all lives matter. Now, honestly, that's all the news should be saying here. But again, they're leaving it incredibly open by just saying a woman shot, right, and killed after Black Lives Matter argument. So when the victim is white, they will never say that a white woman was shot. They just say woman shot. When the criminals, when the perpetrators are non-white, again, they do not say what their race was. But like when you go to the case of the McCloskeys in St. Louis, right? That's the really rich family, rich couple. Used firearms to defend their homes. They didn't shoot anyone, but they came out of their home when the Black Lives Matter crowd was surrounding their homes. The very first headline that came out was literally white couple points guns at peaceful Black Lives Matter protest. They illustrated very clearly this is a white couple. Now, they will not do that when the victim is white.
No, they've left color out of everything here.
100%. And just in case you want to look beyond the headlines, which most people don't nowadays, if you wanted to look beyond the headlines, they leave it completely open, like, oh, it happened because of an argument. Or they'll say so-and-so, allegedly did this. So they leave it incredibly open rather than just being very blatant and saying, honestly, what happened. And it was a black on white murder is what it was.
Yeah, and like we say, we see in this headline here, we see all race has been left out of it. We don't know who shot, what the from the headline at least, we don't know the race of either the shooter or the victim. It's because it just says a Black Lives Matter argument, like you said.
Well, that kind of leads into the next story we were going to talk about with Daniel Lewis Lee.
Yeah,
because the media plays the same parlor tricks when writing their articles about that story as well. Like if you want to, so in this case with the woman Whitaker, who was shot by the black man, they won't include pictures of the perpetrator, but they might include a name, right? So you'll actually have to Google the name of that person to find out what his ethnicity was or what his race was. And that's exactly what they did in this Daniel Lewis Lee story. I don't know if you want to get it started off, Phil, or
you carry on if you want, because I know you know a bit about this story, so I'll let you go.
Well, just a little bit. I mean, I was a little. Again, it's more par for the course. So with Daniel Lewis Lee, what it is he was the first federal execution in America in 17 years. So they brought back federal execution, and they made this guy be the first guy, which makes him the poster child for the reintroduction of federal execution. Now, why is this important? Well, because they say Daniel Lewis Lee was a white supremacist. So you can argue whether he deserved it or not. And he may very well have, if the story is accurate, that I believe he did deserve execution. But the point is the reason why they're bringing it back is because they've got this quote unquote white supremacist poster child. And so that's how they frame it. They say white supremacist executed. But you know what's interesting? They say white supremacist executed for murder. So naturally, you just assume, well, a white guy killed some black people, and this is why he was executed. But again, you have to do some serious digging to even find this guy's as murder victims. And when you do, you find out that they were white. So he didn't kill any non-whites whatsoever. But what they're trying to do is say, hey, look, the country has a massive problem with white people killing black people, and there needs to be something done about that. But again, in this case, there was no white on black violence whatsoever. This was allegedly a white guy, and his victims were white, just as white as he was.
Yeah, I mean, when you first told me, I wasn't aware of this story till RC shared it with me. And I looked up when I had. Now, we're not condoning what this guy did. If this guy did what they say he did, and he very well, he was found guilty. I don't know the details of the case to put on that, but if he did what they say he did, then he deserved execution. Both me and RC agree on that. We're not saying for any instance that a person that could murder 3 people, including a child, would deserve anything less. So we're not defending this guy. What we're saying is, when I first looked at this story, I immediately, as RC just pointed out, I thought, oh, well, who did he kill? He must have killed some black people, or some so-called minority of whatever. But when I looked it up, even the Wikipedia page starts with white supremacist. So I'm like, okay. Read through the story. It seems like it was a home invasion. Well, it was a home invasion while they were out, but the family came back. And these guys killed some people. Like I say, that's the story. I'm reading through it to see the white supremacist part. There is none. But they tag, as we see in this story here, white supremacist killer given lethal injection in first US federal execution since 2003. But there is no white supremacist element. And this is what we're trying to say with the media. They're always going to frame it. So they've picked somebody that committed an obnoxious and heinous crime that deserved to die. And then they've just, although it had nothing to do with race, it had nothing to do with any opinions he may or may not have held. It had to do with robbery, armed robbery, home invasion. But because he's white and because he's got the right look for what they want to try and show us. I'll just scroll down a little bit so you can see. This is what they want their public to think a white supremacist looks like, or somebody that's pro-white or whatever. They framed it so now people can know white supremacists are dangerous. White supremacists need executing. And they're calling any white person a white supremacist. Any white person that has any inclination towards their own self-preservation is a white supremacist. And this is something that we really want to hammer home here, that it doesn't matter what your opinion is, there's no hiding from this anymore. It's coming at you. So that's what they say we look like, and even though it's got nothing to do with it, and this is what we're trying to illustrate with the Indian, the lady that got shot for saying all lives matter. There's no mention of race. This guy didn't do anything. There was no racial crime here, but he's still called a white supremacist. So, I mean, this is the insanity that we're seeing. I mean, this is story after story as we go through them, right? RC, we're seeing this happen pretty much across the board. Yeah, this is not a one-off.
Well, and that's the whole point. Is our media isn't really media. People have to understand there are 2 different types of warfare in the world. Typically, there's conventional. Again, I've talked about this before. There's conventional warfare that everybody knows, where everybody has a very distinct uniform on. They wave a distinct flag, and it's all done with bullets and bombs, right? That's conventional warfare. It's very open. It's very obvious. But then there's unconventional warfare, and typically that starts with information.
Yes.
And that's where they create chaos through information. So our media, and this includes Hollywood and basically anything in pop culture, but mainly, since this is what our show is about, mainstream media is an unconventional warfare engine. It's a propaganda engine. And so what they're doing with these stories is they're painting a very anti-white narrative. Now, they're doing 2 things simultaneously. One, they're obviously trying to generate a lot of hatred towards us by the non-white community. Because again, any 65 to 85 IQ person who reads this title, white supremacist killer given lethal injection,
Yeah.
they're going to read that and think, oh, a white supremacist killer, he must have killed some black people.
Oh yeah, that was my initial.
And they're going to. I'm sorry, go on.
That was my initial, but I obviously dug deeper, and you told me, and then, but like you said earlier, to find out who he killed is not easy, either, right?
No, I had to read half a dozen articles before they even. In fact, I don't even think they mentioned their names in any of the articles I read. I actually just Googled his name specifically. I went to his wiki. His wiki had their names, and then I had to Google each one of his victims' names just to make sure that the wiki was accurate. So it was not easy to find the victims' names because the victims are incredibly white.
Mhm.
But that's the point here. So they're trying to generate a narrative because, again, this is their war against white people. They use these titles, these headlines, and these news articles to anger non-whites against us, and then to scare. This is the other tactic, to scare the non-racialized white population, the ones who try to avoid all racial anything. They try to scare them against this phantom that doesn't exist, this white supremacist phantom that's running around supposedly killing people, so that they don't try to interfere when the government cracks down on white people.
And scares them away from the ideas.
Exactly. Because ultimately that's what's going to happen. We're going to be facing a two-front war, one on the street where white people, and it's already happening, white people are being accosted every single day by non-whites, being stomped to death, being stabbed to death. You can go online and see a new video every single day. You can see a dozen new videos every single day of this happening. And then the other front is the legal front. And this is the one where we're really going to get hammered, where our own government is going to be allowed to basically declare anybody who wants the white race to exist, they're going to declare them a white supremacist killer, a terrorist. And once you get those names, once that title of terrorist has been applied to you, again, in the court of public opinion, you've lost. That accusation is as good as a conviction, and you will lose. And it doesn't matter then what the government does to you. The citizenry will support it.
And it doesn't matter about truth. I mean, the term white supremacist, the supremacist is somebody that wants to rule over others. Yes, rule over races. So a white supremacist, what it's trying to say is that this man wanted to rule over blacks, rule over Hispanics, rule over Asians, or whatever. It doesn't matter. He wants to rule over people. Well, I'm an ethnic nationalist, and I know that you are racial consciousness, and that's the complete opposite to what we want. We don't want to rule over these people at all. We want to actually be left alone to rule over ourselves, right? I mean, but the term has been weaponized, and you are one, despite what it means, doesn't matter anymore because, as you say, the media are using it in a way that people are just going to read it as that guy over there that said that white people that is against immigration, he's a white supremacist, even though it's complete opposite idea, really. And that's the insanity of it all. But when I try to reply to people in tweets saying, "Do you understand what a white?" They just ignore you. They don't want to hear it. They don't want to look at it. They just want to go on their own way, eating up this media and feeling virtuous about it, right? But we've got a lot of stories to cover, so I'm going to jump a little bit here because I'm not sure how to link it very well, but this links to a story that I know RC wants to cover and he's done a bit of research on, so I do want to get to it. Well, here we have the GoFundMe, which I accidentally linked earlier. Legal defense fund removed for couple facing charges in Chipotle incident. That is is it the Westenbergs? Is it RC? I'm terrible with it.
At this point, I'm just pronouncing it Westenberg. It's
Westenberg.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I just pronounce it Westenberg.
This was the lady that obviously, again, as with the richer couple in St. Louis, nobody was harmed in this event, right? And I'm just leading up to bringing RC here, but nobody was harmed in this event. In fact, I looked at the video again just to look at what was going on. They were racially abused, violently threatened, and when she pulled and blocked in, so they had their escape route after being racially insulted, threatened with violence, and then blocked from escape, she pulled her gun. And what some people didn't notice in that video after I looked at it again, because there are actually 2 videos of that incident. And when she pulls the gun, not only does she pull the gun, she is the black lady that's accosting her and being violent in her face and threatening violence actually moves towards her. And it is the lady with the gun that is moving backwards. Now, despite all of that being a clear and cut case of absolute legal use of a firearm, they are being charged, and they've had now, this is government and media corporations working together, they've been charged and had even their GoFundMe legal defense removed. Now, the reason I want to bring this up is because I see highlighted a similar case in some ways, but a lot more violent, a lot more deadly, and just how that changes. And I know you want to talk about this, so I'll give you the stage with this one. The case of William Marcus Wilson.
Oh, you were doing just fine. You could have just rolled with the whole story. Yeah, this one, it's not just what he did. It's actually what Phil was talking about. It's this double standard, this unconventional war being waged against white people. So William Marcus Wilson is a 21-year-old man who murdered a 17-year-old white girl. Mm-hmm. Okay. And the details of this story are incredibly hard to find. But the bottom line of it is he alleges that out of nowhere, a group of teenagers started chasing him in his vehicle while he was with his girlfriend. He alleges that they used racial slurs, none of which of those slurs was actually used in any of the stories that I could find. So he was saying they were yelling racial slurs. And again, we've talked about this. That's their default now. Yeah. Anytime a black person kills a white person, stomps on a white person, stabs a white person, shoots a white person, they're going to say, well, he called me the N-word. Yeah. And again, court of public opinion, they're going to side with the black 9 times out of 10.
And if you look at Twitter comments under things like that, where violent assaults occur, they just say, he called me a nigger, and that was it. It was gone, right? You look at the comments, it's all... we said this last show, but we'll say it again because repetition is important here. Where there'd be people like, I don't normally like violence, but in this case, I'm enjoying it's terrible, but carry on, RC. Sorry for interrupting there, but it's so infuriating. This right. They called me a nasty name, so I had full right and reason to beat the living crap out of them, or in this case, kill somebody.
Yeah. And that's the whole point of this show is it's not to show you the news. It's to illustrate exactly what's coming. So this man claims that in his defense, he fires a warning shot. So he was driving, and it's the same scenario, okay, as the Westenbergs, because he had a concealed carry license. He was legal to carry a concealed firearm, and he was legal to deploy it in a self-defense situation, right? Which he claims this was. But in this particular case, he fired a warning shot. Now, the Westenbergs did not shoot anyone. They didn't even, I don't even know if in that video, if they pointed directly at the woman.
No, she actually holds it down.
It looks like she was, it looked like she was muzzled down. So this guy fired a warning shot from inside his moving vehicle into this unknown vehicle. And this warning shot, as he claims it was, one shot also killed a 17-year-old girl. Okay, so that's how they're framing their story. Now you stack that up against the Westenbergs and you say like, okay, if the Westenbergs should have their legal defense GoFundMe taken down, you would think William Marcus Wilson wouldn't even stand a chance. But no, if you go to his GoFundMe for his legal defense, it's still up right now. It is up 100%. It's still taking donations.
And look at that title there. I mean, Jesus.
And this news story was actually like the lighter of all the ones that I could find. Again, they're framing it in this way, trying to make it seem like this 17-year-old girl was somehow guilty of a crime worthy of being murdered. Again, you would never see this in the reverse.
No.
If a car full of black people were chasing down, a white guy and his girlfriend, and the white guy fired a warning shot and it accidentally killed one of the black people in there.
He was calling him cracker or something.
Yeah. And that's the whole point. You see this exact same story in reverse with the Westenbergs. except for we have on video very clearly, like you said, the black woman racially abused both the white woman and her white husband by calling them racial slurs, and threatened very explicitly threatened violence against both of them. So it's a very clear-cut case of self-defense in the Westenbergs.
Oh, yeah.
But it is not a clear-cut case whatsoever with the William Marcus Wilson. But again, the roles are reversed. So what does the media do? So it's not even about court of law here.
No.
We're talking about court of public opinion. And this is where unconventional warfare takes its place. They can frame these articles however they want. So forget about what happens in the courts. Just look at what they're doing in the court of public opinion.
I mean, yeah, look at
We're
that
on the
title.
end of this.
Look at that title. Black driver charged with murdering one of the racists attacking him, stood his ground, lawyers say. Now, first of all,
They condemned that 17-year-old girl as a racist.
Yeah.
There's no video, no evidence whatsoever to say that she was a racist. But again, once somebody is condemned as a racist, it doesn't matter the fact that she was 17 and her attacker was 21 and he shot her to death. That's it. She deserved it because she's a racist.
and they weren't attacking him either. Calling somebody a name, as far as I'm concerned, is not considered assault. Like it's not a physical assault. I don't know. I mean, I don't know about American gun laws that much, but I don't think that would be covered under stand your ground if someone's calling you a name, right? I'm pretty sure. Yeah,
I would not be legally allowed to shoot anybody if they called me the C word.
Yeah.
Or called mayo or white boy or any of the other racial slurs that we hear on a daily basis.
Yeah, they're all used. In the UK, they use the word gammon. They say it all the time. Celebrities will use it. Even like as we covered in the last show, Karen is essentially a weaponized. It's a word now as a slight on any white woman defending herself. Any white woman that speaks up for herself is a Karen, right? It doesn't matter who they are, especially when it is involving a non-white. So a white woman has a problem. Some non-white has done something. As soon as she stands up for herself, she's called a Karen, right? And it is a racial slur now.
100%. Karen, that's entirely meant to demonize white women who are afraid of their black attackers and want to defend themselves against their black attackers.
Yeah. I think the Wustenberg woman, she was called a Karen in some of the, not in the articles, but in a lot of the Twitter posts that I saw. And here, I'll just show, you're not going to be able to see the video very well here, guys, because the way I've got my screen set up. But I'll try and put a link in the description for later. This is from a Twitter account called Woke Video. And it's titled, Karen gets knocked out for talking that ish to Big Mama. It was actually RC that showed me this video. Now, you won't be able to hear the audio or anything because I haven't lined the video up properly. So, and on the video there, you might be able to read that. It says, how I'm handling Karens all of 2020. Now, just to understand what's going on in this video. The white woman is saying, I will defend myself. I'm not scared of you. And then before she's punched, she says to the black lady, you hit me. And then as she says that, this young black man then sucker punches her and she knocks her head on the concrete. So what we can ascertain from that is she's being assaulted. She's standing up for herself. And now then she's getting sucker punched by a man, what, RC, in his early 20s? Prime of his life, probably.
Yeah, it's absurd. No one should be putting their hands on an elderly woman under any circumstances. But in this particular case, and again, like you said, when you go through the comments on here, you will see people say, again, they'll say, I don't normally condone violence, but in this case, I'm all for it. Again, they're saying they are all for the violence when a easily 20, 22, 24-year-old man, fully grown man, sucker punches a woman who's clearly in her probably late 60s, knocks her unconscious, forcing her to fall on concrete, which, by the way, is the #1 killer in a street fight.
Yeah.
When people get hit and they fall unconscious, they hit their head on the concrete, that can usually end up leading to brain damage, which kills them later. And so people are condoning that. Why? Because they called her a Karen, and
Yeah.
Karen means racist white woman. That's what they've
There's-
made it.
Yeah, I've just put up where they're saying that's a reflex. We don't play about our mothers. So it's completely justified because his mother hit the white lady. And then when the white lady went to verbally defend herself, just say that she's not going to accept this, that was justified to knock her out. Words have consequence, somebody else tells us. I mean, I'll put the link in the description at the end of the show because some of it, I mean, obviously some of our guys have got on there now and they're trying to expose this crap for what it is, but I'm on the fence. Is he protecting his mom? What's wrong with that? I mean, people, like, that would just never be condoned in any area that I've ever grown up in, right?
Well, I was
You know
going
what
to
I
say,
mean?
reverse the races. I know everybody says that's cliche, but no, go ahead, reverse those races. You got
Oh,
a
yeah.
22-year-old white kid who sucker punches a 65-year-old black woman, knocks her unconscious.
Who's
Not only-
verbally defending herself after being physically assaulted. I mean, Jesus Christ. Like when
Not
you,
only the black community condemn that and call, in fact, they would call for the death of that white kid. But the white community would condemn him. The white community would not support him. That's the
Yeah.
weird thing. Roles reverse. Not only does the black community support the black, they condone that, they support him, and they even celebrate what he did. You'll see a whole bunch of self-hating whites jumping in to say the same thing. They'll support the violence against the white woman. So can you guys see what we're trying to illustrate with this show? The dangerous direction that this society is heading in. And this isn't just America. This is in all white Western countries around the world, whether it's Australia or Germany or South Africa or anywhere else in Europe or America, Canada, you name it. This is only happening in white countries. And we're seeing this. There's this very clear line being drawn towards the legalization, the complete legalization of violence directed at white people.
well, as you said, it's a court of public opinion. Who shapes the court of public opinion? The media. The media,
Exactly.
by the way they're framing things, are in fact encouraging this behavior, right? They're encouraging entitlement, which we see from the black community, especially in America. They have this massive sense of entitlement. You owe them reparations. You owe them this. I saw an incident recently as well. I haven't got anything lined up, but I don't know if you saw it, RC, of these black women. It seems to be beating on a white couple in the middle of an airport.
The airport. Yeah, I think everybody's seen
yeah.
that one by now.
And there's the security appear to be filming. One of the security appeared to be filming the fight, not breaking it up, filming it on their camera. I mean, here's another quote here. It's like this just shows you. In the video, it appears that the older black guy comes and says, "Hey man, that was out of order," type thing, and then somebody's put here. And the Negro spiritual came to the white woman defense like most older black men who have that slave mentality to defend Massa and his wife. So
they condemn their own people
yeah,
when they try to call out these bogus behaviors. So again, do you guys see? Do you see the writing on the wall where this is heading? That person right there is trying to say that the only acceptable response is violence towards white people. And even when some non-white tries to say, "Hey, this violence isn't acceptable," look at it, they condemn him.
yeah.
They insult
Another
him.
guy says should have rocked his ass too for capping. I don't fully understand that sentence, but I'm assuming rocked his ass too is a reference to knocking him out. I'm not sure what capping is, but I'm not down with the slang. Have you got any ideas? I'll see on that.
Not with the capping. That's the first one I've ever heard. Yeah. But obviously, he was saying that guy deserved violence too because he was condemning the violence.
Yeah, look at this here. Then this is a great comment here. Thank goodness for extinction. How long, Lord? How long? I'm pretty certain who she's talking about being extinct there. But if you bring that up, you're a racist conspiracy theorist if you believe that if in any way these people are going to replace you or actively want to replace you. Yeah, I mean, this is just the crazy stuff. But like I say, the importance to know here is that when the media are framing everything in the way they're framing it, when YouTube are banning all videos from people like us that just want to say our side, we want to support our people, we want to show the injustices against our people, we're taken away. When they do that and allow every other group to rally against us specifically and defend their people, they become machines of propaganda. They become machines of propaganda which are propagating hatred towards whites, which then allows people in that to see that video and rather than denounce it, actually call for worse or call for more. I mean, this is a direct result of the culture that is being created by modern media and government. Yeah, I mean, government is implicit in this as well, just because of its. Well, we saw with the Black Lives Matter protests, the standing down and all of this nonsense. Right, now, just a point on that. I know I'm just trying to find the story here because I've got quite a few up. In the UK, for example, we had a story. Now, just to show the madness of this, right? A police arrest a 12-year-old boy after a racist message sent to a footballer. Now, that's soccer for you guys in America. But why I wanted to bring this up is it just shows the police actually did a tweet about this where they were so proud.
Bragging. Yeah.
Yeah, carry on, RC. Sorry.
No, I was going to mention when you were done, the tweet that the police made was bragging about arresting this 12-year-old boy. Bragging. They were outright proud. They were airing that out everywhere with pride.
Oh, yeah. It was a big, proud story of theirs that they'd caught, and they caught this 12-year-old, and they thanked everybody for helping them find him. Now, he was just a 12-year-old, and he wasn't even a public tweet, by the way. He was a DM to a famous person. Now, any famous person's got their DMs open. Maybe you should think about that because they're going to get all sorts of crap, right? Even people like me and RC, who are tiny little nobodies in the big world, I get DMs telling me I'm a piece of shit. You know what I mean? So, you know, so this guy reported it to the police. This millionaire footballer reported to the police. Carry on, RC. Sorry.
No, I was just saying that's why I keep my DMs closed.
Yeah, it's kind of it. But instead of just going, "Hey, this is just some kid," and the tweet mentions the KKK, but it's like if you score against me, it's a kid trolling, really. Yes, there was racism, but words hurt these people. So words hurt these people so bad that if you call them any kind of racial slur, they have, as we've already stated, for all intents and purposes, the right to shoot you dead. But this is the same police, and I want to bring this up because there's something we want to cover towards the end, but I'll just keep this quick. This is West Midlands Police. Anybody that is from the UK or knows the accents of the UK will know that I'm from the West Midlands originally. I'm from just outside of Birmingham. And I know for a fact, people think Rotherham is bad. Now, there's been no big bust of any big grooming gang in Birmingham yet. But I can tell you it's the second biggest city in the UK, and it vies for the title of the most diverse with Leicester. So Birmingham is a very, very, very diverse city. Yes, it's nearly 50-50. It's pretty bad there. There's a hell of a lot of violence, and if you go to the wrong street, you're going to get in a lot of trouble. A young girl actually, who accidentally walked into the wrong neighbourhood after a night out, got raped once, and then she got raped again, flagging someone down for help because she was in a bad area and she's not going to get any help there. But just to go back to what I wanted to highlight here, the West Midlands Police were attacked about 5 years ago because they knew that Pakistani grooming gangs were targeting girls outside of schools in Birmingham, and they did not warn the public. They never put out any warnings, and the reason being, and I should have got the story linked up, the reason being is they didn't want to cause racial disharmony. So remember, when they want to rather the non-whites against whites, they're happy to put that inflammatory title. Yeah. Really, really hammer us with those titles. But when it's the other way around, they don't want to mention it because it could cause some upset. And there again, we see how just dangerous this is. This is the government saying, I don't want to cause any disharmony, so I'm going to potentially allow English children to be groomed and gang raped and passed around in drug circles because, we need to keep up the facade that multiculturalism works. Yeah, and it is a facade, right? I mean, we know it's a facade, but we're racist for pointing that out, right? I see.
Yeah, we're racist because we care.
Yeah, because we care. Because we think, screw any harmony. We want to protect the children of our nations. And I tell you, I've said this before, but for the record, when the story breaks in Birmingham of the grooming gangs there, it will make Rotherham look tiny. When that story breaks, if they ever allow it to break, it's going to be huge. We're talking tens of thousands by the time that breaks. And that's all they will report on. But now we're in the last 20 minutes of the show, so there was something we wanted to get on and touch on a little bit. I'm just trying to see what we've got here. We've got this is what I wanted to touch on a little bit, this critical race theory. This is a tweet, and I'm sorry again for it not being really big there, but it's a tweet basically. Last week, a whistleblower sent this guy, Christopher R.F. Ruffo, a trove of documents about divisive diversity training at the Treasury Department. What I discovered is deeply disturbing. Now, I just want to go through a few of these quotes, but we were talking about this before show. We might have to do a whole show on some of this stuff because it's not just here. I was doing some research recently for a video that I'm doing. And what I can say about some of the things that we're just going to touch on here, this is throughout the system. Whether it be corporations like McDonald's or schools that you send your children to. Yeah. The same language is going for everything. I know RC's seen some of this. Do you want to say anything before I just go through a few of the comments here? And we'll just be brief with it.
No, go ahead.
Well, here, the first one, he says, the training is called Difficult Conversations About Race. But now remember, race doesn't exist. But it does in this case because this is anti-white race. Right? And calls on white employees at the Treasury, the Federal Reserve, the FDIC, the CFPB, and the NCUA to pledge, and he's got this in quotes, allyship amid the George Floyd tragedy. The goal is explicit to, and I quote, convert everyone in the federal government to anti-racism. Now, just to explain what anti-racism is, because I have to find them all. Anti-racism is anti-white. How can we show this? We can show this with these documents themselves. Because he goes on to say here that the document states virtually all white people contribute to racism. And then it insists that people should struggle with it to end their own racism. But if all white people contribute to racism and only white people can be racist, then when they say the words anti-racist, they mean anti-white. Now, that's something we've been saying for a very long time. But now they're just admitting it pretty much, right, RC? They're just coming right out with it. There's no there's no whole bars anymore. There's no censorship. They don't even try and hide it.
10 years ago, we were called conspiracy theorists
Yeah.
for saying anti-racism means anti-white. And it's funny now that it's actually coming out in these documents, and yet we are still being called conspiracy theorists when we point this out and say, look, anti-racism or anti-racist means anti-white. Like you said, those are the two primary points. If all white people contribute to racism and only white people can contribute to racism, then by logical default, logical consequence, anti-racist means anti-white. If nobody else can be racist other than white people,
And all white people.
and all white people, yeah. So anti-racist means anti-white, period. There's literally nothing else to say about that.
Yeah.
And again, the writing is on the wall. If they're being this blatant about it, that means there is an unconventional war being waged against you. Again, and that's the whole point of this show, is so that you guys can see this, so that you guys can show people this that need to see this, so you guys can take action, because we are not going to be able to stop what's coming. I mean, understand, this is already in the highest echelons of government. We can't stop that. Voting is not going to stop that. So all we can do at this particular point is prepare for that wave that's coming. Build these breakwaters. And by that, I mean, build your communities. Get to know your neighbors. Start to ask your neighbors what they see. You don't have to come right out. When you meet somebody new, or you're talking to your neighbors about this stuff, you don't have to just come right out and say, I'm X, Y, and Z. I believe X, Y, and Z. Just say, hey, have you noticed this? Have you noticed X, Y, and Z in the media? Have you noticed that things are starting to seem pretty anti-white, that things are getting very hostile towards white people? Just ask them if they're noticing it too, and you will find more often than not, they're seeing it. And they are concerned about it. But like everybody else, they're too afraid to be declared a racist, so they don't talk about it outside of their home. So this is what we need to do. We need to start talking to our neighbors about these things. We need to start building communities that are concerned about this stuff, so that when this, again, we're not just going to be, all this rhetoric here has a point. It's by design. It's creating physical consequences in real life. One of which, as we're seeing, is violent attacks on white people by blacks. We're seeing a lot more of that. So we need to protect our communities from that. But also, the other logical consequence of all of this is going to be government action against us, which we're seeing in some cases, like with the Westenbergs, where if you're white and you defend yourself from a non-white attacker, you're going to go to prison. And you're going to get charged with a hate crime, which means you're going to be a felon. So when you do get out of prison, you can no longer even own a firearm to defend yourself. So we need communities that are going to defend these people who are now in prison for defending themselves. We need communities that can raise them funds to pay for their legal defenses, because GoFundMe clearly isn't an option when you're white. These are the things. This is why we do this show, is to illustrate this, so that action on our end can be taken in defense. Because again, we don't have control over the government. We have zero. Mm-hmm. Voting will not save us here.
No, we need to, and we really need to get the points to our friends and family that don't maybe not see things in our way, that they cannot, there's no longer a place for them to hide. Because also in this thing, I'm not going to go through it all now because we're running out of time, but like I say, me and RC may do a show just specifically on this stuff, because there's so much to unwrap in it. But even in these things, and I've read it in loads of documents, honestly, so many from corporations and government, that if you declare the statement, I don't see race, is now a racist statement. Okay? So whether you decide that you just want to, if people that you know decide that they just, they just want to keep their heads down, they don't want nothing to, it doesn't matter, it's coming for them. Yeah? They are white, and by default they are racist. By default they are probably the problem. Like here, they must accept, it says, white employees must struggle to own their racism and accept their, quote, unconscious bias, white privilege, and white fragility. You got to own that, every bit of it. And if you don't, you're a racist. So if they like it or not, we're the only ones not just me and RC, obviously, our circles of the people that are trying to protect ours, and they need to know that we're not doing this because we hate anyone. We're doing this because we love people. And I've noticed this. I don't know you RC, that this, since that book, they keep using the term white fragility now, which is it's just another term to try and wind us up. I think I mean, talk about fragility. I mean, what some of those stories we've covered here. I mean, how fragile you have to be to get bumped by a lady, to then threaten violence with her. Then when they defend themselves, take them to court. I mean, that's pretty fragile, right?
Or in the case of the 27-year-old grown man soccer player, football player, who is so fragile in his black fragility that he feels the need to, narc on a 12-year-old boy who sent him some inappropriate messages. Yeah. He was 12. That kid was going to do absolutely nothing to you. You, on the other hand, as a 27-year-old, full-grown black man with millions of dollars, by the way, because you're a celebrity, you're in no way were you under any kind of threat. But again, that's black fragility. But that doesn't, that title hasn't been applied to them by any mainstream outlet. So it's not valid.
Yeah, not at all. We're going to have to start wrapping up now. But before we go to our final thoughts on some of this stuff, I just wanted to bring this up. And I've put this in the description as well. I'll get these tweets in the description because this RC shared this and it cracked me up. There's this guy called Riza Islam, and I'll just read out the tweet and then I'll let RC. He makes a statement about what's going on in Chicago. It's not black on black violence like you think. Riza's going to enlighten you here. He says, why are the shootings in Chicago primarily happening over the weekend? ? I don't believe it's us killing us alone. Not with the full full silicone bodysuits that white men can purchase, wear, and easily be mistaken as a black man. The white nationalists will find a way to murder us. Okay, I don't know. He doesn't make that actually clear, and one of the reasons I stumbled there, he's not making it clear. But what he's kind of saying there is that white nationalists are buying full bodysuits, right, and going to the hood and shooting black folk because he notes that white people generally work, so they've only got the weekends to do it, right, Arce?
Well, I was wondering if that's what he was implying. Yeah,
I assume
that,
so.
White people only have the time on the weekends because they work all week, which then implies that blacks don't. If it was blacks doing the shooting, they'd be doing it all week long, right?
Yeah, they'd be doing it all week long. So there's a conspiracy, right?
I feel like that was a post that Tatiana McGrath could have made, and it would have been seen as probably the funniest satire in the world. But he's saying this seriously.
Oh no, he's serious. The comments below it are serious.
This guy is. Yeah, and so many people are taking this seriously. These people literally believe you can go somewhere as a white person and buy yourself a full body, a silicone bodysuit that turns you into a black person so that you can then go commit crimes and blacks will be blamed for it. That's what he's saying. And again, I would laugh at this because I do think it's funny, but it's also it's very dangerous because this is what the media is essentially saying in not so extreme measures as this, is they're trying to say that anytime there is, blacks are committing a crime, they're actually trying to blame white people for it. And you'll see it in hundreds of cases. But in this particular case, this is absurd, but it's even more absurd that thousands of people actually believe this. And that's very dangerous because that means blacks are going to get to commit whatever crime they want without any consequence. And when they commit a crime, get ready, white people, because the police are coming to your door.
Mm-hmm. I mean, silicon suit or no, right? You won't be able to hide from them. And this is the problem.
Silicone bodysuit.
Yeah, I know. But like I say, it is laughable, and so much of what's going on. This is why it's ClownWorld, right? It's a joke. But the problem is, it has real consequences. that has 1.5k likes. So 1,500 of Riz's followers at least believe that statement is true in some way. And again, this is because American blacks are the most privileged blacks on the planet. They've been mollycoddled. The media is telling them that they are the subject of racism, discrimination, and hate, and that they deserve everything. Right? They are entitled to everything, and they can no way ever be the blame of anything. Even when they do commit, it's still not their fault because someone was mean to them. And even if somebody wasn't mean to them in that instant, you know, slavery and some other stuff, right? But yeah, this is the craziness. So is there anything you want to finish up on, or any last point before we bring this to an end then there, RC?
No, we better wrap it up because there's always so much stuff we could end up doing.
Yeah, I
4
fear
hours.
if
And we don't want to be that guy. So
no, if we
we'll wrap it up.
touch on something now, we'll probably go on for a little bit longer. So thanks guys for joining us. We really appreciate people watching. It's why we do it, and the more people watching, the more we can try and get this message out there, and maybe show people they're not alone, because a lot of our guys don't know things like this exist. So share it. You won't know who might tune in and stay silent, and you know, it might help them out a little bit and give them some info. So thanks for joining us. Be well, and make sure to catch us next week, because we will be doing this weekly, as long as people are interested, of course. So be well and speak soon.